I have always just taken every dollar that I have made in the firm and reinvested it in the firm. I think, most lawyers, they may put $2 back into their firm and they take $8 and they take it home and they live a very good lifestyle. And they should enjoy the fruits of their labor. I've been fortunate enough that I can enjoy the fruits of my labors on $2.
Welcome to the Tip the Scales podcast, where we discuss running and growing your law firm. I'm your host, Maria Monroy, president and co-founder of LawRank. Today, I am joined by a very special guest, Alexander Shunnarah. Did you guys know that Alex has probably the second largest law firm in America? They have 60,000 active cases. I'm not going to do it justice, so I'm just going to let you guys listen to it. Alexander Shunnarah.
Hello, how are you doing?
I can't believe finally. I've been pestering you for years.
To be honest with you, I wanted to be on this show for a very long time. I just think it was just timing that...
Don't lie. You don't have to lie to me. You did it because you were just like, she's never going to leave me alone until I do it. Yeah.
I honestly wanted to be on this show. It just timing didn't work out because
you're so busy.
You're such a an authoritative figure in the space, and I know that anytime that we have any type of conversations that iron sharpens iron.
I see you. You're like in meeting after meeting after meeting. It's not like you're, chilling by the pool.
The whole process was to build a firm and then take a step back and relax. But unfortunately, in this space, I have been in growth mode for 23 years, and it just never stops.
And you've done something that is unique. I think maybe unique's not the right word, but I think it's becoming more popular, right? This idea of having multiple law firms with different partners in different states.
Yeah.
How did that start?
I've been practicing 28 years. I worked for a firm for 5 years. I learned the business. I wanted to open up my own firm. We just had our 23rd birthday, and things were really good up until about 17, but the creation of the digital space came in. And so the home state, Alabama, started, regardless of what I did in the traditional sense, our cases started regressing. And at first I was just stubborn, and I continued to push, thinking more marketing or different creatives would help. But we just couldn't withstand the digital space. And even though we have a very good firm in Alabama, I realized at that time that I had to expand my business and become more of a national firm and go to different states. And then in the process, just meeting lawyers who had already created a brand to some degree. The idea came up, well, maybe instead of just trying to build my brand, maybe partnering up with other firms and bringing things that they didn't have, meaning being respectful, maybe some capital,
right,
expertise,
of course,
operations. And since we had everything set up, like call centers, all the things that already had been in Alabama in our home state, it really has helped.
Yeah, rinse and repeat.
And we have about, I own 50% of 3 different law firms now.
That was my next question. How many states are you guys in?
We're in 27 states, but we're really a national firm from a marketing standpoint. But I have 3 different partners, one in Ohio, one in Louisiana, and one in Boston. Larry.
Yes, I love Larry.
And Robert Sugar in Ohio, and Galen Hare in New Orleans. But our firm in New Orleans is actually not a personal injury firm. It's a first party firm. We just do hurricane work, any type of property damage claims. First party claims is what it's called.
Out of the 3, who was your first partner?
First partner was Larry.
Okay.
Second partner was Galen. And then Sugar and I have been together now 2 years in Ohio.
And how did that go about? Did you approach Larry? Or he approached you?
In my scenario, I look for young men who've done a really good job with their business. They're rainmakers. They have a good work ethic. But then they, at their own, have come to the conclusion, because of the climate we're in, that they can't take it to the next step for whatever reason. And I will approach those guys and say, well, what do you think about a partnership? And then, the dialogue starts, and then, we talk about the business and all that. And, and I'm very happy with all 3 partners. I've picked correctly the first 3 times.
Are you looking for more?
I am. I think it's just it's just one part of any expansion. I think if you find the right firm and the right market, and the fit is correct, I think we should acquire firms.
How many active cases do you guys have collectively?
Truthfully, 60,000.
That's a lot.
I think I don't know this, but other than Morgan, I think we have the most cases. We have 30,000 BI cases. I actually own a mass tort firm that people don't know about that has 25,000 cases.
That was my next question, because I knew you did mass torts.
I got in mass torts around the same time in 2017. And we have about 25,000 cases, and we have about 5,000 in I call it my hurricane firm.
Do you think mass torts is going to continue to be what it's been?
I think it's changing. I think the landscape has definitely changed. I think that the defendants, that corporate America has gotten really smart, evidenced by what Bayer did, Bayer Monsanto and Roundup. And if you look at it strategically, all mass torts work through a multi-district litigation. And what was happening is lawyers would just get cases and file it you file it in federal court, and then it gets pushed to the MDL. But Bayer taught everyone a lesson. And I think it helped the top tier firms, because what they did is they identified the top 5 firms.
What happened? You have to excuse my ignorance and educate me a little bit. What happened?
All right. So what Bayer did, and and I have to be very respectful. I mean, Bayer is the Germans. The Germans are some of the smartest people in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Germans recognized, or Bayer recognized, that the exposure they had, down deep inside, they know that glyphosate causes cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that it causes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So what they strategically did is they identified the 5 firms that could really take on Bayer Monsanto. And, there's some of them like, Whites and Luxembourg, Amy Wagstaff, the Kleins of the world, the Arnold Itkins of the world, some of those types of mega type firms. And not to, I know this is a podcast, and I know there's a lot of other good firms like that, but they came to the conclusion that we're going to go and pay these firms and move them out of the way, because they only have a certain number of cases. And then we're going to tell all the other firms, bring it on. And that's what they've done since 2018. And as we sit here presently,
so they settled the cases that these big firms had.
Right.
But everyone else, they told them.
Everybody else is holding the bag right now.
I didn't know this. I don't know much about mass torts.
Yeah, they're just holding the bag. And I mean, I got to be respectful how you say. I mean, there's only so many firms that actually can take on someone like.
I don't think anyone's going to be offended. It's a known thing that, especially in mass torts, that it's very few.
If I had 2,000 Bayer cases myself, do I want to spend the rest of my life litigating against Bayer Monsanto on these Roundup claims? Because in Bayer's eyes, there are only 4, 5, 6, 7 firms that are a real threat to them.
Now, this might be a dumb question, but I assume that part of, I don't know if this is even possible, part of the settlement was you can't bring any more cases to me? Or
yeah, that's a good question. I mean, part of the settlement was, yes, you can't bring on some good cases. You can't take on any more cases. However, the 5 firms that were first to go out in 2018 and were paid a premium on their cases, there were also some other agreements in their, settlements, and they feel like that those have been breached by Mayor. In fact, that since there is a breach, they've like, we don't really care because you breached the contract. And so now there is what we call round 2. And so those firms are actively pursuing more Roundup cases and still filing those cases because of the breach. And Monsanto has not, or Bayer Monsanto has not, to my knowledge, done anything about those firms acquiring more cases because they know they breached the original agreements with those firms.
If you had to really look at it from like a very high level, right?
Right.
Without going into too much detail, because we obviously don't have a couple of days of recording, right? But like, what do you attribute your success to?
you're being kind with the word success, and successive is a relative term. But to say, how did I get here? I think I have always just taken every dollar that I have made in the firm and reinvested it in the firm and reinvested it in more acquisition of cases. I think typically, and it does make sense, and this is just my humble opinion. I think, most lawyers who are successful are first generation lawyers, most of us. And, you go to college, and then you go to law school, and then you open up your firm, and then you struggle, and then once you struggle, then you become somewhat successful. And at some point they're like, well, you should enjoy the fruits of your labor.
Yeah, that was my next question. But at some point do you say, eh?
But I'm saying you should enjoy the fruits of your labor, right? And so what I think firms do is, they start making $10, and I just see it in the industry. They may put $2 back into their firm, and they take $8 and they take it home, and they live a very good lifestyle, and they should enjoy the fruits of their labor.
And I assume you have.
I've been fortunate enough that I can enjoy the fruits of my labors on $2.
Mm.
Once you have a really nice home that you love, and it's paid for, your car's paid for, and you can take care of your family. I don't know any other better place to put your money than back into your firm. Like, people are like, I know so many lawyers that invest in so many different things, but what is better than investing in your own firm, where you run your own firm, you make the decisions, instead of handing it to, a hedge fund guy.
Do you not invest in anything outside of your firm?
I have recently, in the last few years.
What do you invest in?
Well, just to be very honest, I have one of the 6 cannabis licenses in Georgia.
Really?
Georgia just became a medicinal state finally.
How did you get into that?
Happenstance. Happenstance. I had a person who was applying and doing it and asked me to be their lawyer. And, he did some reverse engineering, really young, smart guys, and just needed some help. And I ended up partnering and being awarded one of the 6 licenses, which is very valuable right now.
That's really cool.
Yep. We just got through the appeals, because all the people who did apply and lost, they they're like, well, this particular person shouldn't have a license. But we're about to open up it's linear in Georgia, which means you grow it yourself, you transport it, and you sell it out of your retail dispensaries.
Oh, wow.
And then we partnered up with a huge firm called Sanctuary Medicinals. So I know a lot more about cannabis than I ever did. I don't participate in cannabis. I think it's probably very good for medicinal purposes, but I'm the proud owner of a cannabis company in Georgia. So that was one investment.
So I have a hookup.
You have a hookup at our retail. You just go in there and just say, Alex said I can get what I want.
Perfect. I don't participate either, but if you ever
need it and you're in Georgia, you could find one of our locations and get whatever you want.
Thank you.
I'm an investor in Lofty.
Okay.
My friend Todd Richmeyer, who's a very good guy.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up meeting him 7 or 8 years ago. I liked his model. I ended up, he's in about 50 markets, and I run about 15 of them. And then there was an opening to basically, in their growth, they were raising capital, and so I now own some of Lofty, and it's a good model.
I see a pattern here.
Yep.
That you partner up with people.
I like it. I think because you can't do everything yourself. No. And we all know even up. We do a lot. I'm very close to Raymond, and we do some things with them, and we're actually I guess I'm a consultant for them.
That's amazing.
Yep, we do that, and we help them, and I think that's about it. I mean, there's a couple of other ones I don't, but they,
but not like your typical like.
Yeah, I kind of stay in my space,
Now, so one of your secrets to success was putting more money back into the business, right? And were you afraid when you would do that?
I grew up being risk tolerant. Most people don't know this about me. I don't really talk about it. I didn't get married till I was 38, and so before that, I think it was an advantage to me because I know it was an advantage because when you're not responsible for other people and you don't have children, I think you can be more risk tolerant. But I don't think what most people know is I played professional poker from about in my spare time between maybe 25 and 38.
Really?
And so, and I was pretty good at it. I wasn't as good as what I call the Scandinavian players because they're just really, really good at it. And when you're trying to build a law firm and do that as a hobby, but that's how my mind works. And I think Texas Hold'em is one of the best games in the world, and it's all strategic. And but I make the joke is I never won a hand that I didn't push some chips in the middle, right? You can't win unless you put in some chips. So I've never been afraid to do calculated risks.
So do you think that poker helped you in that
I do
regard?
think poker helped me. I think poker makes your mind very, very sharp. And I think, it's a different way of, it's so many factors. I mean, for only being two cards, of course I've read all the literature, but you have to play it. There's a famous mathematician named David Skalinsky who was one of the best poker players, but there's so many other intangibles that make you a good poker player. And, that old joke is if you sit on a table for if you're on a table for 10 minutes and you can't spot the sucker, you're the sucker.
I didn't know that.
And there have been many tables where I couldn't spot the sucker in 10 minutes and I knew that I was the weakest person on the table. So you kindly remove yourself.
Did that happen in your firm? Times where you were like, no, I shouldn't be doing this anymore. Times to call it quits.
I think if people are being honest, I joke around that I think everything you do is a decision, right?
Yeah, even not making a decision is a decision.
Even a decision. Inaction is inaction, right? And so I just use a number. I mean, I think I've made 100,000 decisions over my lifetime. Like, do I hire this lawyer? Do I invest here? Do I do this? And I tell people that I'm only right I've been right 51,000 times and I've been wrong 49,000 times, but I am living proof that just being 2% or 1% over, you can be very successful in this space. But what happens to most people is they get burned and they don't venture out again.
Yeah.
And you have to continue to venture out.
I know. That's what I keep trying to teach my children. Like, okay, you failed. So what?
Yeah, so what?
Like, that's what you learn.
And we all know this. I mean, you see all the memes, like, Colonel Sanders, he was 67 years old before he started KFC. But all that stuff's true. I mean, Michael Jordan missed the most shots in the history of the NBA, but he's the greatest player that ever lived, it's that kind of stuff, you have to become resilient.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
understand we all have limitations.
Yeah. Now, what would you do because I forget who it was. Was it Grant Cardone that did a TV show where supposedly they like dropped him off in the middle of nowhere with $100 and they're like build $1 million business?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, but
I've heard something like that. But let's say that happened. Like you lost all of your resources, all of your connections, and you wake up. Maybe you wake up today, okay? But you're 30 years old.
What I know for a fact, there are a lot of people who have a lot of money on this earth that are looking for young, smart, outside the box thinking entrepreneurs who have a hardworking ethic. And I would probably go to each and every one of them. And over time, someone is going to believe in you, and I would build the business with their capital. If I didn't have the knowledge, I would, it's easy to say, but like, look where we are in 2024. There's all the information in the world right now, like where things are going, what's important, how the world is changing, things like artificial intelligence, et cetera. And I would do my very best to become a master of that space, at least from a knowledge standpoint, and then go approach investors or individuals on, why don't we open this business? And, I'll do it. I'll run it. You invest it. And in the beginning, I think you would be at a disadvantage, of course, because they have the money and they're going to kind of dictate the terms. But at some point you could break out and then do your own thing.
But did you take on Did you have investors initially or take out loans or anything like that?
No, and I'm very proud of this. I mean, I may be the only lawyer that I know that has never borrowed a dime from anyone, and as of today, we still do not borrow money. It
That's
takes
awesome.
longer. And listen, but I understand business, and I understand like that goes against the grain because every rule is it takes capital to grow.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want the added stress of being financially obligated to private equity or family money or banks in general.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes you have to guard yourself. It's a good feeling to go to sleep and be debt free. However, when you spend the amount of money we spend, I mean, you still have to produce enough income to pay your monthly bills. But I'm saying additionally having loans on top of that would be difficult for me.
Yeah. But this idea that you would go find basically investors one way or another, right. Are you saying this because you want people to use you as an investor, or is it really what you would do?
Well, I mean, under the scenario, if I'm understanding the question correctly, I mean, if you don't have capital, then you have to have capital in anything you do. So if you can't bring capital, you can bring only ideas, work ethic, experience, knowledge, mastery. You can present business plans to people on why this will be successful.
But what about like boots on the ground, grassroots? I'm sure you did that initially, no?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm big on boots on the ground, right?
But your thoughts are on it to make sure I understand. That would just take longer. Like it would just be easier to go find someone to fund things and just do it quickly. Now
that I have the knowledge, yes. I mean, I
see what you're saying.
So I would accelerate it. So it would be different now that I've been in the space. And now at my age, I understand how you can fast track things versus, we'll use again, someone like Raymond, which is, I know you're very close to him.
I don't call him Raymond though.
I don't know what you call him, but
Ray.
I call him Raymond for some reason.
That's really funny.
But I think he's a good example of someone who did things the right way.
Absolutely. Oh my God, he's
brilliant. So when you see those things and you learn those things and you see how someone else has done it, it's kind of hard to erase it from your mind.
I see what you mean. And you're living it on the other end because you have partnered up with people to basically fund it, right? I assume that was like a big appeal to them, right? Your knowledge and funds, right? Because you can't just go and do what get a bunch of billboards and do this and do that without the capital, right? So you've seen it work on the other end.
I've seen it work. Where we are today, though, is different, right, than where we were when traditional marketing was king, I guess.
So would you do traditional today?
No.
What would you do?
I would still try to build brand because I do think brand is very important.
And you don't think you need some traditional for that?
Very little.
What would you do? Billboards? Radio?
I would probably do some billboards. I would do some radio in certain markets where radio is still prevalent.
Okay.
Like maybe the city of Atlanta where people are in their cars. But I would probably stay in the digital world.
Okay. Which is a shift for you.
It would be a huge shift.
You were anti-digital for a minute.
Very. I had to be humbled.
That's funny. You're one of the first people I met when I started doing, have I told you this before?
No.
You were one of the first people I met when we started doing conferences. It was at NTL, and I'm embarrassed to admit that I didn't know you were a big deal.
Well,
which I think made it super easy to meet you.
I don't think even if you knew I was a big deal that would matter to you because I think that's the way you are and that's the way you roll. And I appreciate that about you because really in the end, no one's a big deal, right?
But back in the day, I think when I first started, I found the space intimidating. And had I known like what I know now, I probably would have been a little.
And I want to apologize to you on this podcast because I know what you do and you do a tremendous job. And I know that I personally have told you on several occasions that what you have mastered and what you're good at wasn't for me.
Yeah.
But now I have realized that I was wrong. And I would ask you to forgive me for that. And I have obviously have a much, much better understanding of where we are and how to compete in the space now.
So can I do SEO with Larry now?
You probably can. I'm in the middle of doing some stuff with him, but I think that moving forward, that would be a huge possibility.
That's funny. I'm teasing.
No, I'm serious.
It came up on our podcast, though.
No, I'm being very transparent with you. You know, we understand what we need to do.
I appreciate that.
Moving
I'm
forward.
glad you figured it out. I told you, I'm like, you're leaving money on the table.
Yep.
And I told you as a friend, not even trying to.
No, you did. You were very honest. You were very transparent with us. And look, I mean, it has been, you know, for everyone out there, you know, it has been. We have a very good firm. We obviously didn't accumulate 60,000 cases by
that's just
accident.
crazy.
But
not by accident. Don't say that. Don't be
not,
that.
I said not by
oh,
accident.
okay, good. I was about to say it.
Not by accident, but at the same time, you know, the lessons we have learned from when, you know, it was really good up until about 2017. And if you go back and you do your homework, I think in 2018 was the first time that digital was like 52% with corporate America and traditional was 48%. And for about 5 years, we come to these conferences together and we see people, and we probably used 100 different types of vendors. And then, you know, we had some success with some, and unfortunately there's some that, you know, we didn't have a lot of success with. And so finally in the summer of 23, I brought my entire digital team in-house. Mm-hmm. And it's still been challenging the last 12 months with them also. But at the same time, you know, I think the right mix is using vendors, you know, and people who can help you, and then, you know, also doing it in-house. So it's kind of a combination.
Yeah, you're in a unique spot because most firms can't afford in-house.
Right.
Like, let's be honest, like to have a full in-house team for digital and then a marketing director and a marketing coordinator and like everything needed, I think that's really tough. Not even just financially, but like managing that, right? Because like you need someone to manage it.
Yeah, you need someone to manage it. And that's why I said it's been challenging in the last 12 months or 14 months or whatever, maybe a little bit more. You know, we're in, you know, July of 23. But when you don't completely understand the space yourself, then you have to rely on people that you can trust. And that comes with challenges too, right?
It's just grown, like it's changed so quickly.
Yeah, it has changed. And I feel like we're finally on the right track, but I understand that it's going to pivot. It continues to pivot, right? I don't know how quickly it continues to pivot, but I do know that like for us to compete in this space, if we want to stay in this space, we have to continue to reinvent ourselves.
Yeah. Are you still doing a lot of billboards in Alabama?
Yeah, we are. So I don't want hypocrisy. Like until I am 100% comfortable in the digital world and have the right people there, I will continue to hang on to my traditional.
I don't think that you should let go of your traditional. I think that I know what happens with big advertisers or traditional advertising firms is that because they do it all offline, when somebody goes to digital and they search for a car accident lawyer or whatever it is, and they see the firm that they've been seeing for the past, in your case, 20 plus years, right? They're like, oh yeah, that's what I was looking for. Like, silly me, right? So if you remove that, you're definitely it's going to have an impact. Now, I guess like the $1 million question, I'd argue it's more than $1 million, is will your cost per case go down? And to what extent, and how many cases are you losing, and is it worth it? I would be really nervous to pull your stuff if I were you.
I think the most important thing, and I don't intend to give it all up like you're saying, right? I still think, you know, in the space we're in, if you just want to say personal injury, we're not talking or bodily injury, not mass torts, it's a different animal.
Yeah, that's different.
Not property and casualty, that's a whole different animal. But in the personal injury space, I think that we always call them, and you know these, I mean, you have your, I give them a name, I call them the minnows, the mackerels, and the marlins, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, your minnows are like your cases that have a value of maybe 100 or less. Mm-hmm. And I do think brand, however, is why we get the mackerels and the marlins. And what I've experienced is in the digital world, it has opened up the potential to get as many of those other cases that we want.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't, in my experience, seen the catastrophic type cases or the bigger high volume type cases. And that's what one of the things about my firm that I'm proud of is we really have a really good, we're not a pre-lit firm. We've kind of become a litigation firm. And so we need those larger cases so we can continue to let our trial lawyers excel at them. And I don't think that comes from the digital side.
That's wrong. You're wrong. So, but
I don't know.
But it just
but I stand
depends.
corrected because you corrected me before on.
Well, it just depends on how it's being done. So I'm not saying that what you're saying isn't true for you. What I'm saying is that you just haven't cracked the code.
Yeah.
Right?
And let me say this, and I appreciate you saying that. My experience is before we've become internal, my digital was a contingent on other companies sending those. And I
see what you mean. Yeah, they're not going to send you big cases.
Yeah, I hate to say that. You don't ever want to question anyone's integrity, but the question, obviously, from day one is, we're being real, is like, are they cherry picking the good ones?
Of course they are.
Right.
It's just human nature. Like, you can't.
And so you end up with just the everyday cases,
Yeah.
Regardless of what you spend.
I think your website can generate them because what we have found is that oftentimes the really big cases, people have a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
So when they're going to the internet and they're trying to find out this information to sometimes pretty fucked up questions, if we're honest, right? And you're giving them the answer, then they're more likely to call you. We have a client in Vegas that texted me one day and he was like, in the past 24 hours, you've generated 2 7-figure cases for us. Wow. At that, like 100% attributable to you guys, right? And he's like, I just want you to know, because I know people sometimes don't tell you about the big cases, right?
Right.
So that was really exciting. And we've seen it with like Brian White got a huge trucking case from us pretty early on, right? And these are, for some firms, those can be life-changing, right? Especially if they do take the money and they put it back into the firm, right?
Right.
The other thing I will say, I think that it's really interesting that you say that you're getting the big cases from advertising, from like traditional media, because so many firms think that that doesn't happen that way.
Well, I mean, I think, look, I'm being very honest. I think it comes from, it's not one thing, right? It comes from my brand, right? When you've been somewhere and you've been a staple for a long time, I'm talking about Alabama, where most of our big cases come from, and you've had verdicts. You kind of have the complete, like you said, we have the branding mechanism, we have the verdicts to back it up, we have, I think, all the things that give us a better shot of getting those types of cases. We have an authoritative, versus where if you're, if I'm advertising in Texas or something, right?
Right.
We don't have that authority there. Yeah. Where there are firms who do have that authority. We don't have the results we had.
And you have time. Like you've been doing it for so long. And I think oftentimes lawyers are impatient, mm-hmm. right? And they go into a market, they do billboards for a year, and they're like, it didn't work. Mm-hmm. And we're like, well, you did it for a year, right? Like, it's funny. I met a guy here yesterday who I will not name, but he was like, oh, we've never done digital. We, only do billboards. And he puts his phone out and he shows me the billboard. And I'm like, great. How many billboards do you have? Because I can read people. I'm like, please. He's like, 3. Well, just 1, actually.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, no, that's not doing billboards.
Yeah, that's not enough.
Yeah, that's just not. It's just kind of like comical at that point, like.
Yeah, it's like you're wasting your time, right?
I'm just like, oh, great. I went to the lake and I threw the fishing rod into the lake or the river or the sea, whatever the fuck, once. And then I pulled it out and I was like, oh, I couldn't catch a fish.
Right. Yeah, good luck.
Like, you would laugh. You would be like, Maria, you didn't even try.
I think the hardest thing is for people, because I get that all the time, right? It's like people come to me and they're like, I think it was easier to build a firm maybe when I started than it is like today in this space. I don't know. I mean, it's a good question for you. I mean, can someone in 2024, you have to do something. You're in the space. You have a law firm. You want to grow. And then, the $64 million question is, how do you grow in this environment?
I think it's tough. And I think it does have a lot to do with how much resources do you have, right? Because if we were going to start a firm, because, my husband went to law school, he's never taken the bar, but he went to law school. We're not going to start a firm. But if we were,
where do you start, right?
Well, we would do it all.
Right.
But see, that assumes resources, right? And we would do the digital, we would do billboards, we would do radio. We wouldn't do TV.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to ask you, even though that you're interviewing me, is what do you, give me the top 5 things. You talk to hundreds of people, the space as well as anyone. What do you think in the environment we're in and where we're headed, the 5 top things that you think that a firm should try to do if they had the resource?
I think digital. I think local SEO, having multiple offices in your location, getting reviews. It all ties in. So to me, it's like a circle that literally your whole firm, everything that you do from start to finish, it's all intertwined. It's all connected.
I heard a guy call it yesterday the symphony marketing.
I like that. I mean, it just all is, right? From your intake to your client experience to the reviews that you get to your everything is connected, right?
Right.
But I would say, obviously, I'm inclined digital. Of course, I'm going to say digital, but local, organic SEO, LSA, paid, so PPC. So when I say digital, I mean all 4 things you can do in Google, even including paid for spots on directories that rank on the first page. So if you Google Alabama car accident lawyer, Birmingham car accident lawyer,
right,
and FindLaw is on the first page, you advertise on that top spot for car accident lawyers, right? So you saturate the first page, okay? I would do billboards. I don't know enough about radio, so I want to be really clear. But from what I've heard, if done right, it can work really well.
I think it's worked. I mean, I think there's examples of certain law firms.
Top Dog.
What's that?
Top Dog. He does great radio and does well.
Yeah, James Helms, Top Dog, is a really good example of someone who's had success,
Right. I definitely think that social media.
What platforms do you like?
I mean, I don't TikTok, but I think the world is moving. The younger generation is searching on TikTok, right?
Yeah.
I think that the truth of the matter is when everybody says, oh, the cost per case has gone up, and everybody's talking about this. Well, besides inflation, let's put that aside for a minute because I'm sure that's impacting it. What is the other factor in the past 5 years, right? It's social media. So if people are signing up cases from social media, well, where do they come from? It's not like all of a sudden there are more cases, right?
Right.
And maybe there are. I don't know. But assuming that it's not that much of a difference. Right?
I don't know if there's more accidents, so there probably couldn't be more cases. But
that's what I mean.
But on the argument is, with so much awareness, are more people hiring lawyers? Because you can't go without seeing a message telling you that you could possibly get some money.
I don't think so, because before, I think if anything, there was more awareness before, because you were forced to watch commercials and you would always see a personal injury commercial, right? You couldn't.
On broadcast, for sure.
Yeah, but I'm talking back in the day, right? If we go backwards, before you could even fast forward, through commercials, because at some point we could do that, right? Like when TiVo or whatever the hell it was called came out, right? I think the awareness is there. I think it's just people's attentions are all over the place. You have OTT, right? You have social media. You have the internet. Now you have ChatGPT and other AI platforms that will probably at some point start also taking a piece of the pie. So the problem is that we're diluting. Whereas before you could say, I'm just going to do billboards, radio, and television, and yellow pages, and that was it. There was nothing outside of those 4 things.
Right.
Now there are 15 things you could do. I mean, you can wrap trucks, you can wrap cars. I'm sure you've done it. There are so many things that you could do.
Right.
So
I think the thing that before digital, you hear just before I came to this podcast, I was talking to a very successful lawyer in Chicago, and he was telling me about how everything is just so data driven for him now. And obviously we do a lot of that, is there intent, right? Once they're in, I guess through the digital space, what we've done a really good job lately of is if we see there's any kind of intent, any type of touch point, then, we're chasing those type of people. And there's all kinds of studies about.
Are you chasing them by like retargeting them?
Yeah, retargeting.
Or is it that they've called you and now you're texting and calling
Yeah,
you?
both. But let's say they, the simplest example is they visited our website, right?
Okay.
So we're going to, I call it chase those people. There's a touch point. We don't know if there's intent or not. So we're going to feed them with ads, social ads.
I think that's particularly important for volume firms.
Yeah, because really, and I joke about it. Somebody else has made this up. I think I created it, but nobody wants to give me credit. I call it the spray and pray campaign, right? I am the king of the spray and pray campaign. I mean, in the end, forever, right? And if you talk to John Morgan, I know you mentioned you're going to be speaking to his son. All we ever were was just a brute force campaign, right? And I always said, people talk about creative and stuff like that, I always used to joke, right? Well, hell, I was the creative director. But what I learned is if you create something and you put it on the, say on broadcast television and you run it 3 times more than any other firm, if the messaging is, pretty simple and clean, you're going to get some cases, right? And I don't know if that's the case anymore.
I don't think that's the case anymore.
Or, when you have 1,000 billboards in a state and the closest guy has 100, like they can't escape you, right?
No.
But the problem with that is, you're spraying and praying, right? Like, so everyone knows who you are, but, people are in an accident, 1 or 2 times in their lifetime. So,
Really?
Last time I was in a fender bender, I was 16 years old. So it's been 40 years, thank God. So, we're not selling a product that you can sell over and over. It's a legal service. It's just interesting times, and, I don't think there's any more firms that can survive with just being 100% organic too. And that was another thing, we did is, we are about 65% organic now, but we take in about 35% referrals. When I started, I would be 100% organic. And if I got a case that was a little bit outside my expertise, we would refer it out.
So when you say you're 65% organic, 35% referrals, do you mean you're referring out or they're referring in, or both?
Both. So I think to be I don't think anyone can ever be, it depends on the size, but I don't think any large firm can ever be 100% just generate every one of their cases organically. And so I think you have to, when you do generate organically, you have to pay your lawyers, but you're going to be most profitable if cases come in organically, right? Where if you have cases referred to you, obviously a certain amount right off the bat goes to that other firm, we're grateful for the referrals, but then you still have to pay your attorneys,
Speaking about your attorneys, now that I think about it, I really like your team. And I'm not just saying that, I don't.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I don't give compliments when they're not due. I love Mitri.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I love Larry, obviously.
Yep, sure.
But Sarah Williams.
Yeah,
oh my goodness.
Yep.
Can we talk about her for a minute?
Yeah, we can talk about it.
Because people are like, we're up in arms that she was like promoting herself, but yet she works at your firm. And she got so many questions and so many messages. And people were messaging me, is Sarah going on her own? I'm like, no, she's not.
Yeah.
How do you feel about her promoting herself?
Look, I would like to take some credit for understanding the space we're in. And once again, I have no problem with that because Sarah has her own platform. And Sarah is not someone who will ever be constrained under someone else's platform. And it only makes my firm better. So if anything, I've encouraged every one of my lawyers to create their own brands, create their own platforms. It just helps strengthen the firm because I can't get every case by myself under my brand. I don't resonate with every audience, every, demographic at all times in all markets. So I think she's done an amazing job.
She has.
I
And
think
she's such a badass.
And Sarah's a very gifted woman. She is so smart. Everybody knows she teaches trial advocacy. She has a platform for, empowering women. She's very strategic on what she does, but at the same time, she's very, very loyal to me, and we're best friends. And she's a tremendous asset to our firm.
Yeah, she's a good person. She's a really good person.
And she'll always excel no matter what she does.
Yeah.
But to my knowledge, as we sit here today, we're as closer than we've ever been, and I don't think she's gonna, hang the Sarah Williams law firm. And if she did, she'd be very, very successful. But on my side, I'm joking, but I'm being serious. Like, I'm still going to get my share of cases. I'm just going to tell Sarah to work them at her law firm. So either way, not much changes other than maybe she's not under the umbrella.
And were you always like, because this goes into like leadership, right? And like being comfortable with where you're at and like giving people autonomy, right?
Sure.
Were you always like this?
Yeah, yes. So everybody's different. Like I know firms that are so ego driven.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen firms all across the country that they can't even handle that a lawyer is actually more talented than them, more talented than they are,
mm-hmm.
or better at something than they are. Much less than, allowing other people in their firm to take spotlight. And you see that a lot. I think it's the older firms, a lot of the blue-blooded firms. I don't think it only helps me, in my opinion.
But do you think that in order to have a big volume firm, and by volume I mean like big advertising firm offline, that there has to be some ego involved?
To get where I've gotten?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's ego. I think it's, I call ego edging God out, right?
What's that?
I don't know if you've ever heard that before.
No.
I think you have to be confident in, I am very confident in my knowledge of the space and knowing, regardless of who's with me or who's without me, that my firm is not built on one person hurting my firm if they exit. And that's how you always want to build a company. I'm being funny, but like if Coca-Cola lost their top 5 executives today,
nobody would know.
Nobody cares.
Nobody.
And you, even though we're much smaller than these Fortune 500 companies, you can't be in a firm. Sarah is being one of the best lawyers. She may account for 2 or 3% of my revenue.
Mm.
So if she does go, at least you still have 97% of your revenue. And maybe you hire a lawyer who's half as good as she is. And so maybe you get another point back. So now you're 98% of the revenue. But
that's why I ask if you've always felt this way, right? Because it's easy now.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's not easy, but because I'm sure some lawyers would struggle with it. But it's easier now because of what you just said.
Right.
So when you were smaller and maybe you depended more on someone, maybe somebody brought in, it was, 20% or 10%.
Mm-hmm.
And you would feel it more, right?
Yeah, sure.
Were you still this way, or was there some growth that had some self-growth and reflection that had to happen for you to be this way? Or is it just this is how you are? You're like, you do you. It is what it is.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. I think that, I'm a people person. And what does that mean when you're a people person? I understand humans. I understand human behavior. I think and it takes time, but you have to understand who you're doing business with. What is their background? What do they want to accomplish? Where do they want to go in their life? What's important to them? What is their skill set? What makes them happy? and you try to create a space for them where they can do all those things and still add benefit to your company. And I say this all the time, and I mean it so respectfully. Like, I think people are so immune to it. Like, our intake department is very important, right? Conversion. Very important, right? People spend so much time on marketing, and, like the last time I spoke, they wanted me to speak about marketing again, and just like tomorrow, and digital and where we're going. But we, even though nobody wants to hear about it, will spend 10 minutes talking about, well, all this is great, but if you don't have conversion, it doesn't really matter, right?
Oh, to me, it's like, it's crazy.
And you know that, right? Because you deliver, and then...
It's so annoying. It's like, I need more leads, but look at how many leads you're getting, and you're not signing up what... I have aggregate data. You should be signing up more cases, right? Like...
Yeah. And I think what happens is, and I have to be, not that there's anything wrong with being I call them client advocates. Those are my intake department, right? I don't think when they were growing up that their ultimate goal and dream was to be a client advocate working for Alexander Shunnarah. I'm sure they had higher aspirations. And when you're in that position and you're kind of capped at the amount of money you can make, how do you connect with that person? How does that person come to work, stay happy, stay motivated in the economy that we're in?
Do you do incentives?
We do. Yeah, we do KPIs. Yeah. Is that what you're saying?
No, I guess, like, to me, intake is sales. Like, I'm just this. I know it sounds, people don't like it. It's the truth.
They can do well. They can do well.
That's what I mean. Like, is there some incentive to, if your signups are at this or whatever, or people do differently per case, percentage, wanted, whatever.
I think they're very important. So they are paid probably better at my firm than most firms.
That's smart.
You can make 6 figures if you are really good at my firm.
Yeah. Did you guys, I hope everyone that is listening is taking notes, because intake is so important.
It's so important.
It's just, to me, it's almost like it's silly. It's so obvious, but it seems to be so not obvious to most firms.
Well, look, I mean, I don't know about most firms, but I mean, at some point, regardless of who you are and what firm you are the person that was signing up that client, right?
Yep.
I mean, I can't tell you in the early years how many Waffle Houses I was in at 2:00 in the morning trying to explain to this lady, because her shift wasn't off till 2, and there was no DocuSign, because that was electronic signatures, I think, were stamped in 17 or 18 by the U.S. Supreme Court. And so before then, Mitri, which is he was one of my main guys on the road. I had about 10 or 12 of those guys, and
he's so likable. I can see him doing.
Oh, he always closed.
Oh, he
would close. He wouldn't take
cool,
no for an answer.
He's cool, calm, and collected.
Yeah,
like,
he's he is. Listen, he is a blessing to the firm for sure. And I mean, he's a conversationalist, and he's educated, and he's smart. He has his law degree. We were flying in here yesterday, and he sat next to this lady, and he just didn't stop talking for 4 hours, and it absolutely drove me crazy.
Oh, I bet.
Like, it not only was I angry with him, the first, we were in the front row, I guess, but the first 5 rows were angry because him and that stranger.
What were they talking about?
I don't know. He met this lady that was, it was because I asked him when we got off the plane, I was like, you drove me crazy. And his excuse was, he's the largest, like, San Francisco 49ers fan. And the 49ers had a bad day yesterday, and he was watching it on his phone on YouTube TV. And so he had nervous energy. So all he did was talk to her and turn off the phone because he thought he was jinxing his team, and then he turned it back on and turned it off. But she was a human geography person, basically. And so basically he was enamored because companies hire her to figure out, like, what demographics, take a town where you live or we live, like, what businesses should be built here, and over the next 20 years, who's coming in.
That is really interesting.
It is really interesting. And then he got into knowing who her husband was. He graduated from Georgia Tech, and he's a guy that does the green card, for kids, the new credit card that your children.
Oh, I have that.
Yeah.
The green light.
Green light.
Is it green light? What is it called? I have it.
Yeah, he has the green light.
I mean, it all kind of went to.
It's funny. And
let me see.
So her husband does the machine learning for green light. He was like
green light. That is what it's called.
Yeah, he's an engineer from Georgia Tech, and he's like machine learning. I was like, man, you spent 4 hours talking to her about what she does and her husband does. But look, I mean, that shows you what type of person he is and how good he is for my business. So
yeah, no, he's amazing.
He talked to a stranger for 4 hours on a plane.
I maybe do that once a year, and I travel a lot. Mm-hmm. It takes a lot for me to. I don't want to.
It's a lot of energy. It's a lot of energy.
Yeah. Speaking,
We've seen him go. I've seen him talk for 18 hours straight. I like to talk to, but not to that level.
You seem very quiet.
Yeah. I like to listen more than talk.
I could see that.
Yeah. But I like to absorb.
Yeah. But you are,
I could be a conversation.
Outgoing, you're friendly.
Yeah, sure. I just don't have a lot of patience for as I've gotten older, for non-necessary conversation.
You're saying it's going to get worse for me as I get older?
No.
No, because I have no patience.
Yeah.
I don't like.
Oh, it's worse. It's terrible.
Especially at these things. Where are you from? It's so hot outside. I'm like, you either tell me about your childhood trauma or stop talking to me.
Yeah. I hate to say this, and I'm very high on emotional intelligence, but my pet peeve is incompetence.
You and my husband would go along.
I cannot deal with some, I'm just talking about basic things.
I know. That's why I found it hard to live in Mexico, because things just do not run like they do here. And I found it very frustrating.
So can I say a funny story before we hang up? And you don't have to run this. So
I do or don't?
You don't have to ever run this.
But I can.
So I think this is funny. And I think it summarizes incompetence, right? So I wanted something somewhat healthy to eat. So I go to a restaurant. I go through a drive-thru. And I said, I'd love to see if this happened to you. I said, look, I'd like to get a half a chicken, like a half a chicken plate. Mm-hmm. And she says, white or dark? I said, no, ma'am. I want a half a chicken, like a half a chicken plate. She said, I know, white or dark? I said, ma'am, I don't think you understand me. Half a chicken. She was, I'm sorry. I let me get my manager. I was like, you don't have to get your manager. So she brings her manager. I'm sitting in the drive-thru. And I said, sir, I'm just ordering a half a chicken. And she keeps asking me, white or dark? And the manager says, yeah, but do you want it white or dark?
No, but do you think?
I'm not even exaggerating. I said, sir. There was a man. I said, sir, a half a chicken has a leg, a wing, a breast, and a thigh. The thigh and the leg are dark. The wing and the breast is white. And on the menu here, it says white, $2 more, dark, $1 more, or that. I just want half a chicken where I get one of each piece. So I'm going to get 2 pieces that are dark and 2 pieces that are white. Okay, come on up, sir. We'll get you half a chicken. And that's incompetence.
But do you think that maybe there has to be an explanation for this? This is too stupid. There's no way. Do you think that maybe
it wasn't a prank?
No.
I just think they hired. That's what the labor force is.
Hold on. You don't think that maybe they had? Yeah, no. There's no way. Nothing makes sense.
It's a barbecue restaurant. There's a million of them.
That's so weird, though.
It says half a chicken with your 2 trimmings, and then it says, if you want dark, it's +1. If you want white, it's +2. I just like to have a chicken. I like a spread,
Where was this? I'm going to research this because this is going to irk me.
It was in Alabama. It was in Birmingham. I don't want to call out the barbecue place. It's a very well-known barbecue.
And you've ordered from there a half a chicken before
without
I've been
there a million times, sure.
Oh, okay. So it's not like they had
not
half a chicken that was all white, half a chicken that was all dark.
No, I don't think
They also just had regular half a chickens.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, I would have been really
And
annoyed.
most people, not every barbecue place even gives you the option to get all white or all dark.
Yeah, that typically, when it's half a chicken, just have a chicken.
If you go into the Hispanic community, those type of restaurants, You can't just get all white or all dark.
No, that annoys me because I don't eat dark.
Yeah. But see, for plus $2, you can get all white.
Yeah, I would have done that.
Yeah, sure.
But then it's not really half a chicken.
I want to ask you a question. I know we're leaving.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your take on, I'm sick of the term artificial intelligence. So, and I know a little bit about it, obviously. But what is your take on it in the legal space?
I'm just not the expert here at all.
Yeah.
Do I think it has the potential to streamline things? Yes. Do I believe that it's like intelligence, like that it wouldn't, it would be more accurate if that was the case.
Right.
But from what I've been told is that the problem with AI is that it hallucinates every now and then. So
Right.
like it always needs a human to check everything.
Right.
So that X factor in and of itself, if we can't get rid of that X factor,
Mm-hmm.
I don't see how this does much for us in any meaningful way. Now, I'm sure it keeps teaching itself, right? So yeah, maybe it gets to a point where it just depends who you listen to. Like, I love Joe Rogan. I get that whatever he's like went from being a Democrat to I don't care about politics. So I just don't care about that. And yes, he can be annoying sometimes, but he has a lot of people that are in the AI space.
Right.
And, you have people that are saying like Elon Musk, like, oh, eventually AI is going to do everything. So the government's just going to have to give like universal income to everyone. Thank you so much for doing this. I know you're super busy, so
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much to Alex for everything he shared with us today. If you found the story valuable, please share it with someone you want to see succeed. Subscribe so you never miss an episode, and leave a 5-star review. It goes a long way to help others discover the show.